Okay.
Hola.
What's up?
Hey, what's up, Nick?
Hey, so somebody said that people were talking shit about me in this space. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah.
No, that would be incorrect. I mean, a little bit, but there's been a deep argument.
We're debating
Yeah,
like
what's the argument?
We're debating like the political influence of the Groypers outside of the internet.
I see. The Groypers are very influential.
Nick, I think you're getting the wrong information. The truth is, we were just trying to have a conversation about do the Groypers have as big of a reach as some people think they are? So it wasn't so much about you, to be honest.
Like how much?
I was talking
how much
shit.
are the Groypers actually able to affect politics in the real world outside?
Well, hang on. Who is talking shit? Hadar? Oh, Hazoni.
Yeah, that was me. What's up, dude?
Hazoni, hi.
Yeah, you know it. You know, it was a Zionist plot to deplatform you.
There it is, Zionist. So you're Jewish, I assume, right? Are you a dual citizen as well?
No, I'm just Israeli. I don't recognize my American citizenship.
That's good. Are you related to Yoram Hazoni?
Yeah, he's my father.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's amazing.
In the flesh.
You know, there was a really funny picture I saw the other day of your father Skyping in from Israel to American Moment, and all the American Moment fellows were gathered on the laptop to hear the dual citizen nationalist, as Scott calls him. I don't know, and tell them about politics or something. Why doesn't your dad let me go to his conference, huh? What if I want to see Peter Thiel speak?
I mean, you could see Peter Thiel speak if you weren't such a racist.
I'm not racist.
No, I actually listened to like about 3 hours of you talking, and I probably counted about 6 different jokes about the Holocaust. That was around the time when I realized, this guy's not a real alternative.
So what, do you need a safe space? Do you want to make your own Twitter space and make it a safe space? Are you Snowflake?
No, I think Holocaust jokes are funny. I just don't like anti-Semites.
Well, which is it then? You just said I'm a racist because I made a bunch of Holocaust jokes. Now you say they're funny. So which is it?
Well, it just depends how you say them. I mean, I could be wrong about you, but I don't think I am.
Oh, really? So it just depends on...
Well,
okay.
well, you say... Well, no, what you say. Well, you...
Because what?
But you say, are you an anti-Semite or not? I don't have to decide for you. No. Decide for yourself.
Well, you just called me one. What's going on with you? You're very confused. You're having a hard time here.
I'm not confused. It's a straight question. If you say you're not,
then you tell me, well, are you?
Well, I think you are, but if you say you're not, I'll believe you. Are you not?
Okay. Well, I'm not. Do you believe me?
Yeah, I do. That's simple.
This is the most insane shit I've ever
heard. I'm glad
this
we
is
got
great,
that
guys.
settled.
Can we hug and kiss over this? Like, this is so funny. This is fantastic.
I'm glad I got to ask you.
Settled.
All right, Nick, you got one down. I'm sure there's plenty more who want to step up.
Nick is repairing relations with the Jewish community every single day.
This is a good
I love Jews. I love Jews. Do you believe me?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get to ask you before.
Yeah. Well, but you came in here guns blazing. You're making Holocaust jokes. You're a racist anti-Semite. I guess it's that simple, right? I guess it's that easy.
I mean, with me it is, yeah.
Wait, Hadar, if they
I take people at their word.
Would you believe?
No, probably not. But I only watched 3 hours. I mean, I didn't watch all of his stuff. I cut a guy a break.
Yeah, you should watch my stuff. It's listen, I'm a respecter. Darren Beatty, fine Jewish American.
Well, Nick, I got a question.
Fine.
Nick, I got a question. What is up with this whole thought process behind you want women to be like Afghanistan? You said this
Here we go.
No, you don't have to go anywhere. You can explain it to me. Like, I'm not trying to. You tell me, man. How does that make sense? Why don't we go to like the pre-civil rights America? Isn't that close?
Dude, I explained it to you earlier.
Pre-civil rights America.
Listen, dude. Women are goofy, okay, and they should have no authority.
Wow.
They should have no authority
when
over
the man's
men.
right, he's right.
Thank you. See, and they just really have no business in politics.
When the man's right, he's right.
It's fitting right now.
Honestly, and I was saying that partly to troll. What's her name, Emma Watson or whatever. I was saying that partly to troll her, Sydney Watson, whatever. And and it worked. But yeah, I also do sort of strongly believe in Taliban rule. It's like, wouldn't that be preferable? Like if the Taliban, well, I shouldn't say this because I'm under FBI investigation. So let's just
Yo,
let's stop that one.
but Fuentes, well, what's your take on Catherine the Great though, or
Catherine the
Cleopatra?
Great? I don't know. I'm not a Russian history.
Hey, Nick, did you
buff.
fly down to Dallas? Are you still on FBI watch list?
Oh, you drove.
I drove to Dallas.
How was it?
It sucked. Is that supposed to be a taunt, or is that
No,
you
it's
just
not a taunt
asking?
at all. I love driving across this country.
I don't. Mall America, strip mall America, one after the other, eating at McDonald's and fucking Freddy's the whole way. That actually was. I don't mind that because I love burgers, but yeah, it's
man,
actually
chicken
not fun.
tendies from Chicago all the way to Dallas.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
Nick, do you ever?
yeah,
Nick,
I thought
Nick,
everyone was talking
Nick,
shit.
do you ever regret that you
Yeah.
kind of fucked your political career by like making edgy jokes?
I don't think I think I reject the premise of your question because my career is surging actually, and I think everybody is going to be eating their hat in a matter of years. But I think the whole concept of career is gay. Like, no offense, but when I look at DC people and they're all sucking each other off at think tanks and talking about things like common good originalism, like if that were my career, no offense, I would kill myself.
Yeah, look, man, fair
that
enough,
just,
but like you can't get on a plane, so you know.
Yeah, that part sucks. But I'm a real patriot, and when you're a real patriot, you have to make real sacrifices. And
But I'm just saying there's a pretty big ceiling. And we were just talking about like, your influence, and we were saying like you've gotten a lot of kids, based, and we respect that for sure. But like
No, actually, you were
Hey,
saying
you said
didn't.
you said
I'm
the
saying
opposite.
He was.
No, I was saying I don't think that Nick has particular influence outside of the internet for the specific reasons that we're just talking about, which is the fact that like
Well, I think we both know that's not true, Nate. I think we both know that's not true.
the Groiper casts
For
a
better
long
or
shadow.
for worse, that's not true.
No, I literally said I think Nick's probably a better influence than Ben Shapiro on young men who might otherwise be conservative. So I mean, this is like I think that there's the fact that kids are listening to you, like there's good things and bad things about it. But the fact that you have like said super edgy things means that there's like a pretty strong ceiling to what you can actually accomplish in politics. And is that something that you're like actually thinking about? Like the fact that like your career now is basically like you broadcasting from your basement. Like you can't get on an airplane. You're definitely never going to be like accepted in actual politics. Like you created a pretty big ceiling for yourself that there's not really anything you can do about it at this point.
See, no, I disagree with that. I disagree with that whole premise. I think that we need boldness, and as far as ceilings go, I don't believe in ceilings because I always break them. I'm always rising up through them. So I think that you just sort of have a limited, maybe, imagination about what's going to become possible within the next couple decades. So no, I don't see it that way. And honestly,
So what is it? Is it Nick for president? Is that the game?
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen because there's, non-white people who probably wouldn't vote for me. There'll be more of them than there are of us.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to become possible in the next couple of decades then?
Well, I think the ascendancy of real American reaction. I think people are going to become more right-wing. I think white identity is going to become bigger. And, I think there's going to be a decisive shift in right-wing politics where, the old guard is going to have less and less power. You're kind of already seeing that. Like the writing is on the wall. The old guard is basically dead. I mean,
that's true.
Institutionally, they're still around, but it's not what it was 6 or 7 years ago before Trump ran. So I think that, looking at it now, we're still sort of in the ruins of the establishment. They're still casting a shadow, still have influence. But, what we're doing, and by the way, it's, to me, like, I'm more interested in just being authentic and being me. Like, with a lot of you guys, you agree with me on certain things, but you can't say it, and you kind of have to live your whole life kind of like, yes, sir, no, sir, sorry, sir, sorry, Mr. Goldstein. And me, I just
Not
get
an
online
anti-Semite.
and I just stunt.
Goldstein is just a name.
There it is. There it is. You're
Yeah. What can you do? The
Very
Jews just have
sensitive
so
soul.
much power, man. You
My
can't even
issue
begin to struggle
is
against them.
like I think we have a lot of the same philosophical influences. You like Buchanan, you like Francis. I'm more interested though in the idea of like an encompassing American identity and the idea that there is like some form of transmissible Anglo-American culture, that we're kind of in a position now where even if we wanted to reverse the last 100 years of immigration or of family policies, it's just not plausible. So like I'm why white identity is such a core aspect of the movement. If first of all, it's probably not the way that many Americans think naturally. They just kind of are not in that vein. They're more in the vein of like America as a nation or America as an idea. So like, what's your position, I guess, on the role of white identity politics? Because you're definitely a proponent of it. I think you even said it today, right? I'm not saying
Yeah,
that as like
so
a roast.
No, yeah, and I don't take it that way. I think that, there's this new phenomenon where you've got these populist types who have cropped up recently, and they're these sort of Trumpism without Trump, a lot of Claremont people, acolytes of like Josh Hawley and DeSantis and Tucker. And I hear this like, and I love Tucker, by the way. That's not a dig at him, but, this is all kind of bound up together. I hear a lot of people saying this like, it's about class, not race. And like, there still is this tension to deny the reality of race. And my basic belief is that will become untenable over time, because race is essential. It's an essential part of a person. It's a biological fact. It's also a sociological
What is
phenomenon.
race? What is race? How do you define a race?
A race would be like it's sort of like, how it's like a taxonomy, so when you have like species and all these kinds of things, it's like race, and then there's sub races and local forms are beneath like Homo sapien, I guess. So it's
And there's
like
a white race.
It's a taxonomic classification.
Is there such a thing as a white race?
Yes.
Okay, and who is in the white race?
Is there such a thing as the Jewish people, Mr. Hazoni?
Yeah, but they're not. It's not biological, so it's a different question.
It absolutely is.
It's not.
Like, this is where I disagree. Like,
even you, Mr. Fuentes, could become Jewish if you wanted.
No, I
even
couldn't.
you.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, you can.
No.
You're talking to somebody whose mother converted to Judaism.
Sephardic, and they got the Ashkenazi, all the different other types.
Not according to real Jews, you have to have a Jewish mother.
It's descended through the matriarchal
dude,
line.
I won't correct you on white identity, and you don't correct me on who isn't or isn't a Jew. How about that?
Why don't you not tell me what to do? Can you for 5 seconds not tell the white man what to do, Mr. Hazoni? I'm rising up.
No, probably not. Probably not. It's Zionist supremacy. We're just better than you guys. But that's the real question. But that's the real question,
that's why
right?
People have a problem with you guys. It's because of that attitude that you have, which we all know that you have.
Look, let me come to the defense of Nick real quick, even though he's blocked me on Twitter, which is that the people attacking Nick, the people that are attacking Nick right now sound a lot like the left. That's all I'm going to say. The people accusing him of being a racist, accusing him of being an anti-Semite, sound a lot like what Antifa would say exactly about Nick. And so you guys need to really think about.
I took back the anti-Semite thing because he said that he wasn't. I took it back.
You brought it back.
I took it back.
Which is it?
Let me finish this. Listen, you need to really think about why your talking points are exactly the same as what any Antifa heckler would come in and say. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know who you are, Yazoni, whatever the fuck your name is, but I'm just going to say that you need to recognize that your talking points are functional. Any Antifa heckler at a Walter or Shapiro or whatever fucking rally. So that's my piece. I'm out.
You're right. Nobody can ever be racist. You can never call someone racist.
I just want to know if Nick thinks Italians are white.
Well, I don't think Italians are like Anglo. I would never. I preserve my ethnic identity as an Italian. But listen, this is anti-white. You're being anti-white because we as Europeans have to stick together, okay? In the European race, is real. And, you know, when people say, it's almost like you betray that you're arguing in bad faith when you say, like, well, what is white? The white race isn't real. It's like, of course the white race is real. Of course race is a biological fact. And of course it's also, even if it's not, for the sake of argument, that it is a phenomena in society, you know, that people identify as black or white, and that has importance and salience to them, is sufficient to say that it is real.
Yeah, that is true.
And so, but it also is biological. And the thing is that, you know, this is why I'm bringing this up. You know, as to whether or not race politics will be important or relevant in the future, it's really a question of whether race is real. Because if race is real, then that tells us that, you know, and because of human nature, we're not going to be able to overcome this. You know, this idea that like race will stop being salient magically because half the blacks and some Hispanics are all going to vote GOP because they all work at an Amazon warehouse, like that magically is not going to eradicate like the kinds of passions we've seen in the past year with like George Floyd and the Waukesha terror attack and all this. Like, if anything, politics is becoming more racialized and not less. And as the demographics change and whites become a minority, I think that is going to catalyze by distinction a white identity. In other words, you know, whereas white people growing up in some places now, but historically everywhere, everybody was white. So how can you really, it's like a fish swimming in water. Does a fish know that they're in water if that's all they ever know? In the same sense, how can a white identity form in an all-white nation? As whites become a minority locally and globally in America, you know, they're going to start to say, hey, what's with these other kids in the classroom? What's with these other parents? You know, what's with these other people at work and at school? And, you know, people are naturally just going to start to notice these things. And I think that, and this is just a consequence of race being real as they notice them. And, you know, tribalism remains a relevant fact. That is going to be a part of our politics. And
okay. But here, so like, I still don't buy the race thing, but I'm willing to accept it for the sake of the argument. So then what is racial politics to you? What is the political interest of so-called the white race?
Well, it's like racial self-interest. It's like, you know, we can look at other examples of racial politics in America. Like, what is black racial politics? We have BLM. You've got bail reform, prison reform, criminal justice nonsense. You've got, you know, all the, and even locally, there's different issues within like the big cities and things. But,
okay, but how do you do this dealing with the fact that like 50% of like American whites are like shit libs now?
Yeah, I mean, that's relevant. But the thing is like when you look at Trump, 90% of the people that voted for Trump were white, and implicitly, like MAGA and all those things was really an expression of white identity in some sense. People just don't know it yet. Like liberals got that right. And so you're right. I mean, there are liberal whites, but the bulk of what forms the so-called conservative Republican thing in America is whites. And it's gradually becoming more and more explicit that like conservatism is about conserving, you know, the texture and the character of a white American society. That's like where the opposition to CRT comes from. Like even people like Matt Walsh and others are calling it out.
I mean, the most non-whites in like American history voted for Trump in 2020. So like it's becoming less.
So what was that? 12% of blacks and what? 30-some% of Hispanics.
Yeah, it's like a little more than a third of Hispanics, a little more than a third of Asians. Like it's not an insignificant.
Yeah, okay.
And you had that Fox News exit.
But hold on. Like the idea that white identity is coming to the foreground, I mean, like it's moving it's moving away. It's becoming less white. Like conservatism in America, both as a movement as an expression in like Republican Party politics, like it's literally becoming less white. It's not becoming more white.
No, I think it's becoming more white because like compare Trumpism to like what the GOP was before. Trumpism was so implicit. You know, when he would say things like illegals or rapists, someone's doing the raping, Don, and he said we should ban Muslims from America, and he called Haiti a shithole country. And, you know, you could go down the list, like even make America great again. Like, here's a great question. Well, when was America great? 30, 40 years ago. And, you know, what was America like 30 or 40 years ago? You know, people didn't think about it that far. I guess liberals said that. They're like, what, make America racist again? And it's literally like, yeah, like
bring
But
back.
but Nick,
like,
what
you know,
you haven't
guys.
really answered the question. Like, what are the interests? What are the actual policy things? You keep on saying white identity, white America. Okay, what are the actual things that you think they need? You haven't said even one thing.
Well, hold on, hang on here. All right, I'm elaborating on my point. I compared it to black racial politics. You said, what would that look like? I said, well, look like every other ethnic politics. Well, here's an example: anti-CRT. That's like a perfect example. Like, that is a white identity issue, because what CRT really means is anti-white. I mean, let's just say that CRT, like all these other bullshit Fox News talking points, is just another one of these weasel words to obfuscate the truth. It's like when we say it's like critical race theory, cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism, try Jewish intellectual. Try that one on for size, Mr.
I mean,
Hazelmi.
it's just you can't help the fact that American intellectuals were not great until the Jews showed up. You just can't help it. That's just a historical fact.
That's just not true.
Yeah, that's not
That is
really,
just
buddy.
not
I'm
true,
not.
man.
I'm
What do you
not.
How
what do
about
you want to do?
Mattis?
You want to be a Rawlsian? You want to be a
Oh, now we're
Rawlsian?
doing this. Are you
How about
kidding
The
me?
Mattis and
founders,
So,
Brand?
had some good
wait.
ideas that might be worth
Hamilton
consulting.
was
Yeah,
Jewish.
thank you,
Are
Alexander.
What?
you are
Oh,
you kidding me
please.
right
What?
now?
Book
Are
Ken
you
would like to
serious,
word with
Hadar?
you
Are you
on
actually
that.
saying something?
Anyways, let's get back to. Sorry, Nick. What were you saying?
Yeah.
No, but
So
I wanted to add something because I don't buy this whole shit that like race isn't real or whatever. Obviously it is. Obviously it's a factor. My issue is more that like a couple things. First, our Christian heritage prevents race essentialism from ever being at the forefront of things. The second is that Hispanics are moving in a way similar to how other white groups have moved. And this isn't like a ridiculous thing. Like if you read, there's this book called White Shift by Eric Kaufman. He talks about this a lot, how the voting patterns are shifting, how identity within 4 generations is shifting. Okay, so that's like some good sign going on there. And then the last is that, at the end of the day, the oligarchy, whatever we call the professional managerial class that has its tongs and everything in our society, it affects everyone in a certain negative way that I think that limiting our politics to this type of racial essentialism is just not beneficial for. So that would be my criticism of it. But like one of the problems, Nick, with your whole movement is that I was probably defending you the most up here of anyone. I was saying that I'm not allergic to you. I'm not allergic to the Groyper movement. I disagree with them on certain things, but I frequently respond to them and talk to them when I very easily couldn't. And you're like you're telling them to come and target me. Like you said, I'm talking shit about you in the space and stuff.
I didn't target you.
I mean, you
This
literally.
You
is like
came
a
in.
weird.
You were
weird
swinging
question.
punches, Nate. Nick, you came in. You were swinging
Hang on,
punches,
Mr.
man.
Hazoni. I
This is
said,
a
I
this
asked
is
a
a this is
question.
a
I said, hey, are
divergence.
you talking
This is
shit?
not
Because
really
that's
like
what
the
I
point of the
heard.
conversation. The
Somebody
point.
said,
No, but it is part of the point because if like the one person who's gonna come up here and at
I
least
heard
somewhat defend you.
someone said people are talking shit in the space.
That doesn't mean every.
Why is everyone such a baby here? All right, it's a funny tweet. I jumped in. I said, hey, who's talking shit? And people
It
said,
was
hey,
pretty
we're not
funny.
talking shit.
Yeah, no,
And
no,
I
no.
was
Okay,
like,
no.
so
The
just chill.
interesting thing to debate, Nick, that I just disagree with you about is like that a strictly like white identitarian politics just doesn't work in American politics in 2021. Like you and I mean, I assume you recognize that like a solid 50% plus, like American whites are by many metrics like the most liberal demographic in America now. Like if you want any kind of coherent conservative politics, organizing around white identity doesn't work because a significant portion of American whites are committed to a politics that is directly opposed to everything that any kind of conservative cares about. And B, like a winning political coalition has to draw on the conservatism of non-white Americans. Like regardless of this, questions of whether or not like it's a good thing, like you just can't, like the idea that like conservatism is becoming more race conscious and more organized around white identity, it's belied by the facts of what the actual 2020 GOP coalition looks like, and it's belied by just demographic numbers about what whites in America believe, by what non-whites in America believe, and what like any sort of reasonable political strategy for right-wing politics in America would actually look like from any metric. Like it's not.
But Nate,
It's
even
Yeah,
more
I
not
than
going
could
to
that,
be the
disagree.
the
majority.
All right, can I jump in here?
I want
Can I
Luca's
jump in here? Transmissible.
question answered.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So,
well, first of all, I just wanted to add to that a little bit. Like, The Anglo-American tradition is transmissible. I'm an Italian. The majority of America are Germans.
Get out. Get out.
I'm just saying.
Could never let you in the first place.
It's transmissible to an extent. Like this isn't like this essentialism. I don't understand. Because,
long live the
even if
queen.
you concede the fact. Yeah, even if you concede the fact that maybe it's only within the whites, it's like super transmissible. That's still like pretty extensive. The fact that like almost everyone here with a type of white consciousness is not like a founding stock Anglo. Okay, well that shows us that like race and ideas are separated from each other to such an extent that you can have some some nuance there. So I don't know. What do you think?
It's a false syllogism. This goes back to who made this argument? Someone, I think Scott knows what I'm talking about. Like 15 years ago, it was what's his name? The one from Heritage who wrote the paper about race and IQ, and he got fired.
Rich Wine.
Rich Wine, yeah. Rich Wine did a book talk on this like 15 years ago, and someone made the same argument, and he said, that's a false syllogism to say that, oh, well, some people, like Italians or American ethnics, were considered non-white or non-Anglo, but the Anglo ideas were transmissible to them. Therefore, Anglo ideas are transmissible to other people. I mean, where's the evidence of that? Because if you look at the polling on the issues, non-white people do not support the First Amendment. Non-white people do not support the original interpretation of the Constitution. I just don't know where that is. And a majority of them don't even vote for conservatism. What's more is like blacks.
Neither do white people, though, bro.
Wait a second, but you're changing the goalposts.
I'm not changing the goalposts.
I was talking about white ethnics, and now I'm saying that Latinos.
You're talking about the
white
transmissibility
ethnics.
of Anglo ideas, and I'm saying certainly.
Yeah, they were transmissible to white ethnics.
Yes, but so far there's no evidence that they've been transmitted to non-whites. I said that you can't.
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that Hispanics are becoming white.
That's what I'm talking about. They're not white and they're not becoming white. You're saying like, well,
they are becoming like we have data that they're over time becoming white.
They're still brown, dude, and they're not white. And
actually, a lot of them aren't. Like,
some of them have white admixture, and some of them identify as white, but that doesn't change the fact that Hispanics don't vote like white people. Hispanics don't believe the same things as white people.
They're voting more and more like white people.
Okay, well, again, what was the percentage in the last election?
In Virginia, the Fox exit poll said over 50%.
That doesn't matter.
It was a double-digit jump. It was a double-digit jump in like 4 different states. Like it depends on the region, but like Georgia, Florida, and Texas all saw like 12 to 15% jumps. Like
what about
a massive
Let me ask you this. What about in Los Angeles? When you go to Los Angeles and you go into a mall and it's all fucking Mexicans speaking Spanish to each other, do you feel like you're in a white country? Do you feel like you're in Nebraska? Do you feel the transmissibility of Anglo ideals
I don't know,
when
dude,
they're waving Mexican flags at their fucking soccer games in Los Angeles? Hello?
Yeah, no, Luca makes a good point, dude. You feel the same way.
If you were in New
you feel the
York
same way in New
1870s,
York after Ellis Island. Like,
if you were in New York in the 1870s, it would not also feel like America either.
Yeah, but
these things
or even now, go down to
Italy
or Chinatown, it does not feel like an American country.
Well, that's a good point. But also, Sam Huntington makes this point in Who Are We? If you've all read this, you already know what I'm going to say. There's a big difference between the Hispanic immigration of the past 30 years and the immigration from Ellis Island, because Mexico is connected
Sam
to
Huntington's
America.
making the exact point I'm saying, dude.
I know,
He's saying that race is not
wrong.
essential.
His conclusions are wrong, but he argues aptly, which apparently you don't know what I'm talking about, that the Hispanic waves of immigration are different than the waves of ethnic immigration because they're all they all speak the same language. They're all largely coming from similar countries. They're contiguous with the United States. They're ampersands because they travel to and from America frequently, and the volume of them is so much higher in such a short amount of time. So, in other words,
which is why
assimilation.
It's taking longer. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Right. And
well,
when are the blacks
this is my issue, bro.
Nick, you're right. You're right about the size of the immigration. The size of the immigration is definitely an issue. You're completely right about that. But the language thing, that's a little bit harder because language is not a biological category. I mean, what if it was a much smaller number of people? I'm saying, what if it was a much smaller number of people? If it was a much smaller number of people,
but against cultural enclaves and things like that.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's about different people coming here. It's about non-white people coming here. And you could say like, well, them speaking Spanish and playing football and waving their fucking flags and being, on average 15 IQ points lower than whites, Like, that's not cultural, okay? And culture proceeds from race as well. And
I mean, everything besides IQ that you've just said is cultural, and it seems like the beef outside of IQ has to do with immigration rates, which, like, we all, at least everyone on here who's like on board with the kind of like broad right-wing politics that we're interested in, like,
I just don't understand what the argument is.
I want to reduce legal immigration rates for the precise reasons that you pointed out. But it doesn't mean that I don't think Hispanics can assimilate in the exact same way that, like, Russian whites,
but they're
Italian
not.
whites.
What are they going to assimilate into?
Luca, please.
What are they going to assimilate into? BLM, gay pride flags, Netflix?
Okay, well, now you're taking issue with...
No, you're seeing the exact opposite.
You're totally changing it.
Oh, my fucking God. Now you're taking issue with the native culture. Now you're taking issue with the native culture, which is an issue with American institutions, not with the specific people that you're pointing to. Like, you're talking about assimilation.
Let me ask you this:
the native culture they're being assimilated into.
What really is the game here? Because this is what you DC types do. Is just sort of like, well, now you're moving the goalposts. It's like, listen, because
now that is a slur if I've heard one.
We're talking about is the salience, or I should say, the advent of white identity politics in America. And I said, well, here's why it's going to happen. Because race is real, socially and biologically. This can't be ignored. Tribalism won't be overcome. And politics is becoming more racialized for X, Y, and Z reason. And so this is why it's going to be there. And you guys come in with these kind of quips like, well, Anglo ideas are transmissible because a third of Hispanics voted for Trump in the last election.
I mean, like, you're just...
Luca, let him finish.
It's like you're missing the forest for the trees here. It's like, I don't really care that more Hispanics are voting for Trump. Travel to California. I don't really care that, like, once again, 50% of Hispanics voted for Youngkin. It's like, okay, well, a black guy just drove through a crowd of people in Wisconsin in retaliation for the Rittenhouse case. And now even on Daily Wire, they're using the word anti-white. Like, to miss what's going on right now, that's what you're doing. You're missing what's going on right now. And a lot of these arguments I'm hearing coming from you guys, this is what Trumpism without Trump is going to be. This is what all these clever populists have in mind. It's sort of just like the new version of natural conservatives. It's like these Hispanics are natural conservatives. These Hispanics are going to become
buddy,
right.
I just want to look, buddy.
Go ahead,
look,
yeah.
I just want to save America. I think that your version of politics is just completely disconnected from reality. You're not actually engaging with the conditions of the moment. Like, look, first of all, in terms of Trump, like, the man was, like, constantly touting black unemployment rates and would take every second that he could to talk about how he wanted to raise legal immigration rates. So if you're, like, touting Trump as, like, the necessary, the secret sauce in Trumpism, I think you're going to be sorely disappointed by what the guy was actually about. But in terms
you
of
don't know what the guy was actually about.
In terms of actual politics, if you are going to insist on a conservative coalition that is strictly organized around white identity at the exclusion of other people that might be allies in our electoral,
I didn't say that.
You are going to lose because that kind of politics is no longer viable in America. I'm sorry. You just look, man,
no longer.
Maybe it would be ideal if it were. But if you are running a political campaign, a political strategy around activating white identity as the organizing principle of your politics, you are going to lose. And this fundamentally, look, man, like,
that's what Trump
I respect some of what you're doing, but this fundamentally is why I was saying earlier, I don't think you're a serious political operator, because the kind of politics that you are advocating is disconnected from the reality of what America is in 2021. It's just not going to work.
Well, and the reason is
we're not kicking people out, insisting on kicking people out who are actually interested.
Wait, no one's talking about kicking people out. You see, now you're just misrepresenting my position. You took what I said, which is, white identity is the future, and then you turned it into white identity to the exclusion of non-white people who want to participate, which is not what I said.
You want a politics organized around white identity.
But now you're going to tell me what.
Wait, Nate, let him answer. So Nick, what is?
Okay, so let's just clarify something very quickly. Do you want a politics that's centered around race foremost? Because that would answer, I think, Nate's question.
No, that's not what I said. I didn't say a politics centered around race. I said that, and I didn't say as an advocate. I said that it's a reality that politics will become more racialized, and whites will become more racialized. A white consciousness will be raised. It's as simple as that. And, I thought I heard somebody...
I disagree with that.
Okay, well,
but that
there you
is
go.
the difference on the...
Well, can I ask this? Because, let's say, I don't know, since the Civil Rights Act or whatever until maybe about 2013 or so, I think we could argue politics got less racialized in that time, and increasingly more in recent years it's become more racialized. What do you think is the exact reason for that? It's not, obviously we were getting more diverse in a lot of those years. It can't be that necessarily. To me, it seems like it's an ideological thing that's been pushed by, certain people, especially on a lot of these minority groups, and it's come up in recent years. Do you think by making America more race conscious, it would promote more stability, less racial divisions and problems like that, or more?
It's not about promoting it. It's a fact. It's just a fact that it's occurring. This is something that it's not like I'm going out there.
Though? Why do you think it's occurring?
Can I answer a fucking question here? Is it just like the Claremont gangbang over here? So I already explained that. I already explained why race consciousness will raise. I said that earlier because race is real, tribalism is immutable, and if you believe that race is real, then you know that's not going to be eradicated by, again, this Bannon strategy of, hey, we're all Amazon workers of the world unite. It's like fucking Marxism. In any case, to get to the original point, which is about your racialization of politics in America being a consequence of being pushed. It's being pushed by the government or, I don't know, other actors. That's just not true. And there's actually been a long sort of line of politics being racialized since really like the civil rights movement, because then you get the Black Panthers and you get MLK Day and you get politics really has kind of always been racialized, and it's getting more so now. I think probably it has a lot to do with like Obama getting into office, because Obama gets in, declares war on whites. He says, I'm going to destroy Christianity and I'm going to take your guns. And there's a war on Christmas. And whites, and this is literally what it is, whites were like, fuck you. Like this, they didn't say this explicitly, but with Trump, that was like their answer. They're like, fuck you, Obama. We're saying Merry Christmas again. We're keeping our guns, and we love God and all that. Make America great again. Make America great again. So Trump gets in, and Trump activates the other side, because what does the other side make it about? They say, oh, well, Trump is this white supremacist. He's said Charlottesville was good and blah, blah, blah. And then that catalyzes and riles up the non-whites, and he's getting chased out of the convention center when he does his rally in LA by Mexicans. And then you've got the, Curial thing, and you've got the Muslim Gold Star family, and, ginning up all this racial resentment. And so I'll say to your point, it is true that the media and other powers are exacerbating the racial grievances of non-whites for political benefit, but they didn't create those racial grievances. They're exploiting them. And that's an important distinction, because the racial grievances are there, and you couldn't create them. You couldn't exploit them if they weren't already there. But that's just it. It didn't take the Democratic Party for blacks to distrust or resent white people. It didn't take the Democratic Party to make the Mexicans or the Muslims or all these other alienated people to feel resentful towards a white revanchist president, which is what Trump was. So that's my take on specifically why it's gotten so racial in the past few years. It's not hard to see that.
Nick, you just said white identity is the future. What? Mm-hmm. So if you're saying that you're not interested in a politics organized around white racial conscience or white identity, what does that mean?
That white people will become more conscious of their race, and that race will become more salient in politics. So why is this complicated? I feel like this is very simple, but for some reason, for you guys, it's very hard.
Look, man, I'm genuinely in good faith asking. Like, it seems like you're saying the same thing, but you're saying that they're different. Like, how is what you're saying different from a politics organized around white identity?
Because the idea that politics is organized in the sense that I'm talking about is just not true. It's got nothing to do with, nobody's doing any organizing. Organizing implies like intentionality or like, as acting upon politics.
You don't think politics is organized?
See, now you're just deliberately not understanding what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the white consciousness of the people in the country is raising. You're saying politics being organized or something? I mean, what does that even mean? Who's organized the politics? The parties, the media, who's going to organize the political consensus and based
the
on
conservative movement, the regime, like there's like a bunch.
So
of
what you're really,
factors.
so what you're
like,
really
what is the
asking,
defining principle? What are the defining principles and the objectives of your political movement? Like, to me, it seems
now
like
that's
it's
a
like
totally separate question. Now that's just a completely separate question.
It's just look, man. It's just they're different. Fine,
Look,
if that's
man,
how. If
listen, dude, listen, buddy, listen, man. You know, these DC people, you guys are going to ruin what Trump did. Trump went out there and he said illegals are rapists and we're kicking all the Muslims out. And you guys got in here and made it about common good originalism and multiracial working class
I'm just asking
populism.
you a question, man.
I'm not
I don't
your
think
buddy.
any of us are saying that.
I'm genuinely just looking for an answer. Like, is the objective of
What's the
your
question?
political movement? I don't know how to say it. I'll say it another way. Do you want American conservatism to be primarily about advocating for the interests of white people?
I would rephrase the question, but I'll basically say yes.
Okay, so and I'm saying, and so then those are the terms you can argue about. I'm saying that version of conservatism is going to lose.
Well, you're wrong.
Because there are not
because Trump won based on that. Trump came in a field of 16 of the top Republicans in the country, senators, governors, other successful political people who are all advocating for the kind of stuff you're talking about, which is like inclusivity and the new American century. And Trump came in and said, you know what? We're saying Merry Christmas again. And Trump crushed them all.
So Nick, I agree with you, I guess, on the whole interest of white people part. I would just say they're just simply, and you can say that I'm wrong on this because you've already argued it, but they're simply not limited to white people, and they're expanding every single day to non-white people. So I don't know why we need to use the term white to describe what we're talking about, because inevitably this is expanding. It's something that is deep in the American psyche. It's something that, a simple affirmation of a nation or an affirmation of all this other stuff. I mean, you can say like, but you're basically just advocating for white identity politics.
Yes,
and you're
basically yes.
I disagree with you.
Okay, I do have a question about this though. Like, let's say in however many years, we were talking decades earlier, right? Do you expect people who would call themselves groypers or subscribe to your philosophy to run for office and win only in areas, whether it's state race or a federal race or whatever, only in areas that are dominated by white people demographically?
Groypers are already in office.
Or do you expect them?
And groypers are running for office now, and they'll run in the future, and they're going to do well. Here's a good example, Dave Riley. Dave Riley ran this was local office, so I know you guys would turn your noses up at that.
Like a school board, right?
Yeah, I didn't say, you'd be sort of condescending towards it. But it's a small scale example of a guy who ran in northern Idaho. He lost by 100 votes, but he was getting standing ovations and great crowds talking about CRT and talking in more explicit terms than, Tucker, than people like you guys. And that's just a good example.
I think you're mischaracterizing us. We agree with basically anyone that's forwarding a dissident right message nationally.
You're not dissident.
We just disagree. Yes, we are.
No, you work for
Hey, man, don't throw insults, man. If he wants to be a dissident, he gets to be a dissident.
If you work for Newsmax, you're not a dissident. If you're an ISI fellow, you're not a dissident. Can I go through everyone's Twitter bio here?
No, that's bullshit.
Yo, go through mine. Yo, roast me, please.
Yeah, if you're Yoram Hazoni's son, you're not a fucking dissident. Okay, I'll just tell you that.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I'm a dissident.
Here we
I'm
go.
on the federal no-fly list. You're an ISI fellow. You work for Newsmax. You're only a
dissident if you say fucking Holocaust jokes.
I don't. This is such a dumb.
Don't you ever use that word with me again, Joe. Don't you ever use that word again with me.
Can we stop the dick measuring contest and get back to actually talking?
Yeah, after I won.
But it's kind of fun though.
After I won, yeah, we could get back after I won the dick measuring contest.
Okay, tell me about the
Spits fire though.
You won based on your version of politics in rural Idaho.
Say restate that because the other guy jumped in there.
Just tell me about the ideal sort of receptacle for white identity politics in rural Idaho.
Yeah, so like I said, that guy ran on a more explicit message and did really well there. And I think that it's not a stretch to say that people like groypers are rapidly going to enter politics, and you're going to find that they are viable. And I say this because people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are in office, Paul Gosar's in office, and who are the most popular commentators, like Tucker Carlson, and so.
And none of these people fucking agree with you, dude. Like, this is my issue.
I don't know about that. I don't know
They
about.
agree with us.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really true.
They agree with us more than they agree with you. But you're claiming all these fucking people like we're not allowed to be fans.
I think
you're not
like,
allowed
we can't
to be
their
fans of
supporters.
Trump.
It's just
you're
nonsense.
not allowed to be a fan
it's
of
nonsense.
Trump. How dare you?
Your Groyper movement is not as expansive.
Yes, it is. We cast a shadow over everything that goes on in this country.
We're
like Project
Yeah,
Mayhem.
fine, but Nick, you still haven't answered Nate's question. It's a good question, even if you were completely right about everything that you said. Right? Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you're completely right.
I am.
How do you win outside of places that are 75% quote unquote white?
Well, see, again, I wanted to get back.
He's
to...
not winning in places that are.
Can I answer the question?
But wait, he believes he can. So I want to hear what his plan is.
Let me answer the question. So, earlier I made the distinction because one of you guys said like, "Oh, you're talking about white identity, the exclusion of everybody else." I didn't say that. And I actually, when you said, well, what does white identity politics look like? I said, well, it looks like other ethnic interest politics. Is there a black nationalist party that only the black people? No, of course not. Blacks vote for Democrats because Democrats support the interests of black people. So do Hispanics because Democrats support the ethnic interest of Hispanic people. The Republican Party must be the party that is going to, serve the interests of white people or advance the interests of white people, which happens to have overlap with broadly, ideological conservatives. Like, yeah, a lot of Hispanics voted for Trump. And guess what? Trump was advocating, in my opinion, proto-white identity. And some blacks did too. And so I don't think that it's about excluding anybody else. It's actually about including white people. And it's interesting because, nobody really seems to have a problem with the ethnic interest politics of the aliens. It's always the native population when we start to talk about race isn't real and the transmissibility of ideas. It's like, what about our people? That was the message of Trumpism. You're our voice. And that's what the Republican Party has to be, is the voice of the disaffected white American. That's what conservatism is supposed to be, but what the leadership is trying desperately to run away from. And that's why they're bending over backwards to appease and pander to minorities. And if anything, that's the thing.
Okay, but you're doing this like
Richard
Spencer
all right.
You're doing this Richard.
I'm
Spencer.
just gonna.
I'm
gonna step in.
No. I mean,
wait, Luca,
shut
up, Luca. Let someone else talk. Javon, go.
My African American.
No, dude, can you please let someone else talk? Javon, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know, Bran Flakes. I'm assuming your name is Nick. I've been hearing people call you Nick. Former White House guy here, Trump White House guy here. Black American, conservative Black American. What's interesting to me is that your logic, the way that you've spelled out essentially how this future conservative movement will be, is not necessarily that it's pro-white; it's that it's anti-minority.
Of course, you would say that.
No doubt, I would.
Hey, let him finish the question.
Yeah, no doubt, I would say that because by your logic, you're saying that by nature of my skin color, I'm automatically a Democratic voter.
I didn't say that.
Therefore,
I didn't say that, Candace Owens.
No, this is stupid.
Yeah, boo.
Like, come on.
You guys please fucking let him finish the question. Holy shit.
No.
Right.
He doesn't even know who he's talking to. He doesn't.
The question stands, man.
Yeah.
Nick said that minorities support Democrats. Is that necessarily a point?
I'm not doing this whole I'm not doing this whole I'm black and I'm offended.
Let's go.
We're having a
He didn't say he was offended.
Shut up.
He only had a question.
This is
no. It was one of those not all arguments, which we're not interested in talking about. Right?
No, what we're talking about right now is the place of white identity in the conservative movement. We're not having these grandstanding people coming up here complaining about what Nick said.
But Luca, that is exactly the problem, right? Because Nate's point is, if you want to win elections, if you want to win, look, Nick's
ridiculous.
Nate's point was that if you want to win elections, you have to also care about people who are not white. Okay, and then this guy who's not white shows up, and the first thing you do is you laugh at him and chase him out. That's exactly his point.
That is the gayest thing I've ever heard.
He doesn't even fully know what we're talking about here. He doesn't even know who the speaker is. It's kind of irrelevant.
Andy was black.
Let me just clarify. Let me just clarify here. My problem with the whole white identity thing is that it's just not materially true on the ground. The idea is that some things are transmissible. People do adopt the American nation, the inheritance of the American nation, the heroes of the American nation, to, through rhetoric, automatically single out people that fit that category. That's a lot of people. And the fact is that Trump didn't do that because Trump doesn't believe that. Trump believes what I'm saying. He does not believe in this essentialism that you're saying.
Hey, Luca, thanks for giving me the boot earlier. Number one, as a Black Trump supporter, fuck you for that shit, dude. I'm as conservative as it gets, so fuck you for that, bro. Number two, Nick, what I was trying to say is, once again, as the token Black guy up here, as Lucas so-called pointed out, what the fuck I was trying to say is, before I got booted, was that your vision of the party, bro, doesn't include people like me. And not only does it not include people like me,
that's true,
it doesn't
but not
make
for
an
the reason
effort.
you think.
It doesn't make an effort. Now my question is, why is that attractive in a country that's becoming more and more diverse? Why would you want?
Don't you work for the America First policy?
Bro, can you please let him finish his fucking question, dude?
No, that's a dumb point.
Shut the fuck up for 30 seconds. Let him finish his question.
My point is
regular John Brown over there. Thank you for fighting.
My point is for folks, the country's obviously getting more diverse, and so frankly, white people are going to be a minority. So I'm just looking at the numbers game of this shit, dog, and it doesn't make sense for you to say, well, this should be a white only party. Why does that make sense to you? Even if you're just looking at the numbers.
Didn't say that. I didn't say a whites only party. And again, it seems like there's just an understanding barrier here. It's really not even an argument or a debate. It's more like me sort of educating all of you. And Javon, I'll educate you, boy, about what I just said earlier, which is that it's not about.
Call me boy.
Damn right. It's not about. I'm sorry, brother. I didn't mean it like that. I just. It's not because you're Black. That's just something I say sometimes, brother. But so listen, what I said earlier is it's not about excluding non-white people. It's about including the base of the GOP, which is whites. Why is this difficult? Ann Coulter said this years. I don't like Ann Coulter, but she said this decades ago. You need
Black people are conservatives. That's what you're not getting. Black people.
Yeah, but they vote for.
Yeah, but
Black people.
Wait, hold up. At this point, Devon, whatever your name is, he said he's not opposed to having non-white people support the GOP. But then the question is, what are you willing to do to reach out to these people to get them to support you?
He's saying we shouldn't. That's what I'm confused about. Black people are naturally conservative, so there's a demographic there. The point is that the conservatives traditionally have not reached out to Black folks, which is why Trump had widespread success.
I just want to point out
to minority groups.
I just want to point out, you worked in the Trump administration, and that kind of says it all, doesn't it? And by the way, you worked for the America First Policy Institute, which also says it all. This is that if that does not tell you what the fuck is wrong with Trumpism without Trump, it's basically all the awful staffers who fucking wrecked the first term are now going to go on into new think tanks funded by the same people and promote reaching out to fucking.
Are you gonna answer the question, dude? Are you gonna go on a tirade about Black people? Are you gonna answer the question?
Why we're not going to try and win over Blacks? Yeah. Here's the answer to your question. Conservative Blacks don't even vote for Republicans. There's no correlation between what Blacks believe and who they vote for. It's entirely based on their identity as Blacks that they vote for.
So that relationship only exists with white people. That white people vote for.
Don't forget that.
I'm trying to understand your logic. So Black people, there's no correlation between morals and who we vote for. That relationship only exists with white Americans, is what you're saying, right?
No, it only exists with Black people. Only Black people are like that.
Oh, okay.
Conservative Hispanics vote for Republicans. Yeah, but for whatever reason, and then you can ask anybody to look at the polling data on this too, because you're right. There are, Blacks are somewhat conservative socially, but they don't vote for Republicans. And
why do you think that
reaching
is?
out thing.
Wait, Devon, let him answer about the reaching out.
Right?
Nick, why shouldn't we reach out? Why shouldn't we reach out to minorities if we think they're somehow
it's a waste of time.
Why?
It's a completely waste because it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it's not worth it, and we should try to win over white people like Trump did. Trump brought in the white working class from Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania and won. That's what carried his victory, not the 7% of blacks that he won in 2016, not the 20 whatever percent of Hispanics that he won in 16. He won by reaching out to a broader white base, which was not based on.
This isn't going to work in 50 years, dude. This is the
Yeah,
problem.
he won by like thousands of votes across 3 states. Like this is just not a viable.
Yeah, and Mitt Romney lost, and so did John.
Well, nobody here supports Mitt Romney or McCain. That's it. That's a straw man. But Nick, answer the question. If the numbers are against us, are you
fat? You sound fat.
What?
That's not the point. The point is, if the numbers are against us, then how could you ever possibly win on based on a population which is quickly becoming a minority? You haven't answered that question.
That was my question earlier before I got the boot by Lucas.
Well, Nate asked it, then I asked it, then you asked it. Now I'm asking it again.
You keep saying you haven't answered my question. It's like I'm fielding about 1,000 questions, and I think I'm answering most of them. So how is this going to work in 50 years? Here's how this is going to work in 50 years, okay? I believe this to be true. There are going to be non-white people that are going to join up with the conservative side. And once again, I'll reiterate, there are going to be non-white people, as there are now, who subscribe to a proto-white and eventually a white identity message or something that includes white identity. They will. So that'll still be competitive. The other thing, though, is, and this is just true about, what's going to happen within the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, is that conservative politics will not be viable. This idea, because I hear what you guys are saying. You're saying like, oh, well, white people are diminishing. The percentage of whites is diminishing. So that's why we need to create this big tent thing based on Anglo ideas and propositional nation. And that's why we got to bring in Hispanics and blacks. And I'm telling you that hang on. Well, can I answer the question that this Jewish guy haranguing?
Hey, man, Jews have really good questions. Really good.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, it's a real culture critique going on over there among those guys. So anyway, so the point is that your politics is not going to be viable because these people are not going to vote for a conservative message. America is going to become a one-party state under the Democrats, and the goal is going to be create a viable opposition and resistance to that. And the only viable resistance is going to come from white people. And yeah, there's going to be some Hispanics and maybe blacks in there too. But, I'll give you a good example. When we think about the future, I don't think honestly nationally, because I think that basically that's over. I don't think that, we're going to flip Texas and all these other states back red in 20 years because we subscribe to economic nationalism. That's a fucking pipe dream. But here's what may happen is that, maybe in these conservative parts of the country, like this stretch of land from Idaho to Florida, we'll be able to consolidate power in state governments. And, as the federal government becomes weaker due to affirmative action and is maybe less able to project power, maybe there's more autonomy in these places. Maybe there's more Ron DeSantis's governing states from Idaho to Florida. And maybe we have something like, a real federalism or something. And so I think that honestly, that's the only appropriate and reasonable way to think about politics. I mean, you say that white identity is not viable because we can't win a presidential election with only white people in 30 years. I think that is a ridiculous premise. And the idea that like you guys are still entertaining that shows how unserious you are about the gravity of what's going on. Talking about electoral politics in 15 years, it's just not going to work. That's an anachronism in 15 years. You know what I'm saying? So we've got to start thinking bigger than that, which is how can we consolidate people in America to oppose what's coming, under an umbrella that is strong. And I think that, basing it on this economic nationalism or transmissible Anglo ideals, I don't think that's going to hold together any meaningful opposition against the government. I do see, though, these Q boomers. I see these activated, the Trump supporters, something that is based on the, sort of white American identity. I think that's the only thing that's going to bind people together to oppose what's coming.
Wait a second. No, what the Q boomers are doing is they're reasserting their Anglo-American values. That's what they're doing. They're not reasserting a racial value. What is exclusively racial about the Anglo-American tradition? It's something that's been transmissible.
I'm not
Dude, how
talking
many
about the
January 6th
Anglo-American
protesters
tradition.
were thinking about the Anglo-American tradition?
What
Yeah,
you're
To be fair,
doing
how many of
is
them were thinking about white
you're
independence?
doing is you're separating people's concerns over the way the country's going with their heritage, which is Anglo-American. So when they're revolting against the way the country's going, they're not doing it for racial reasons. They're doing it because the country doesn't look, not racially, it doesn't look like it used to be. You can just talk to these
Yeah, why
people,
is
they'll
that?
tell you that.
Why doesn't it look the way that it used to? I think that's an interesting question. Maybe it's because all these fucking non-white immigrants poured in.
That's a part of it, but it's also
Goy, hello.
Another part of it is the fact
Why
that
does Israel
we've
not look
literally
like
changed.
it used to? Yeah, because of non-white people pouring in. Like why, again, this seems like so simple to me, but for some reason we're really getting into the weeds about simple stuff. It's like, when you look at, and I'll just keep saying it, when you look at Trumpism and why it succeeded, it was because it was a message that was based on culture and identity, not on economics, not on ideology. He didn't go there and say
neither of those things are racial.
Yeah,
nobody here is
hang on.
I think
Whoa,
there's
hang
about
on.
culture
Can
and
I finish my
identity.
point?
I just think you're overemphasizing the racial aspect of it, and overemphasizing the racial aspect.
But race is extremely salient, and you guys don't want to entertain it seemingly at all. But race is a very salient part of identity. Like, to say that identity is not racial, what a retarded statement that is.
Sure, it's
to
part
say
of
that
it.
identity
it's a part of it.
is not a
It's
racial
not all
thing.
of it.
It like the preeminent
Class is more important
Thanks,
than
man.
race.
Thanks for that insight.
monolithic aspect.
Yeah, it's real brilliant.
Politics is like
Sure.
dumb and
But
counterproductive.
on this point about America not looking like it used to, I mean, it's not just the racial part. Even when you go into the very white parts, like almost exclusively white parts of America, they're still seeing things in their communities that, it doesn't look like it used to. Trans story hour or whatever, their kids going into school and half of the girls are identifying with weird
It's actually worse.
pronouns.
Culturally, it's worse in these white areas. So this just doesn't make any sense. The factor here is that the culture is changing. We don't identify with the nation anymore like we used to in academia. And this isn't a matter really of race, although, race is something that has changed over 50 years.
Yeah, how about
It's
the
a matter
past year of race
liberalism.
riots? How about
It's a
the
matter
past
of
year of
liberalism.
race riots? Those black people taking ATMs and tying them to their trucks and driving off with them, that's about fucking liberalism?
Yeah, and the fact that they
Buddy,
don't
that was all
any
sanctioned by
repercussions for it.
progressive white elites, and all of the BLM
White
protests
progressive
were,
elites,
populated by,
white,
You
white
people got to get
progressive
out of
elites,
DC, man.
white progressive elites.
Oh, here
Remind
we go.
you, white
Yeah,
progressive
but
The token White House.
white
hire.
progressive
no,
elites.
but yeah, that is true. But Nick, I mean, the problem with what you're saying is, I mean, basically, that's not a vision that can save a republic. You're basically saying secession is coming. We don't have anything to
Save the
do about it.
republic. How old are you, dude? Save the republic. What are you, 11? The republic is dead. Okay.
Well,
we live in
fine.
this giant
Well, that's
multiracial empire, and the idea that we even care about being if America was a kingdom under Donald Trump, I'd be fine with that. It's about saving our nation, not our republic. A republic, if you can keep it. How about our identity as a nation, if we can keep it?
I'm all about that, but I think secession will destroy the American nation. If anything that's left of it.
We're kind of changing the boundaries now. The fact is that Nick is right about that. Nick is right that there is a nation that predates the political order of America, and the political order doesn't really matter. But
you're not arguing against. I'm a nationalist.
The nation, right? But the nation is not exclusively white. I mean, this is just a problem.
What? Secession will destroy the nation. It just will.
American nationalism is inseparable from racialism. These things are not combined very much. If you talk to any person out in the middle of nowhere in America, they're not racist and they're probably a nationalist.
Yeah, they are.
That's
dude,
interesting.
You've probably never even been in the country. Yes, they are racist. 100%.
I'm a fucking welder. I'm a fucking welder from outside Philly. All
Luca
of my friends joke
is a
around about
welder.
race. Yeah, all my
Philadelphia is not racist. Yeah. That's a great argument. Yeah, neither is Boston either, right?
They're
In
not
Chicago.
Yeah, but Nick, that's not a fair argument. I've been in
racist.
45 states, and I got to say that not the majority of people I met were not racist.
Yeah, we know. You're at home
Boston's
everywhere
a
and nowhere.
perfect
We know.
example. They're like overtly like you could say they're like pretty, racist or whatever, but they vote like overwhelmingly Democrat. Like,
Okay, but that wasn't the argument. I mean, you're like, well, they're racist, but they vote Democrat. It's like, well, what was the question? If they're racist.
But I actually disagree with you about the people in the middle of the country. Like in my experience, like having going to these areas, they might have ideas about like they have good instincts about like, well, I don't like that BLM stuff or whatever, but they're actually like they're actually like not racist. They actually, they talk about like MLK and stuff and how I like that MLK, but I don't like that BLM stuff.
What country are you from, man? I mean, yeah, maybe when you meet
go
them
to
and they
Trump
think you're like
rallies,
a journalist,
like in the middle of nowhere.
Do you not
spend a little bit of
wait,
time.
do you
Spend a little
actually
bit of time
think
with
that
these
a majority
people.
of Americans? Do you think a majority of Americans?
Do you
are like
actually
Francis
think?
Pill?
Why do you have such a condescending tone? Is it because I'm a goy?
Why do you?
Is that why?
You're telling
Is
me
it because
I have
I'm
a
a goy?
tone,
Nick, I just gotta point out,
because I'm a
Luca was
red-pilled
defending
goy
you.
rising up?
Luca was the guy defending you before you
Yeah, this
showed
is the
up, and you have
problem.
so alienated him.
Good.
This
Yeah,
is the
he's got
problem,
a girly
dude.
voice.
I just don't like your
and,
personality.
Your
I really
voice
just
is
don't
girly.
like your
Yeah,
ideas
I'm
are
glad
fine,
you
bro.
said that because you
Some
sound
of
like
your
a
ideas
pussy.
are fine. I just don't
Nick,
like your
describe
personality. I
Luca's
think you're a
girly
bitch.
voice.
Yeah, I think you're a bad dude.
What specifically is girly about it?
I don't know, just like this high pitched, up talking tone. It's just like very effeminate.
Have you ever
That's all.
touched a woman, bro?
No, I haven't.
No. You only become a race realist if no one's willing to date you.
Yeah,
all right, let's not let it
sound like a girl
Sorry,
when you
dude.
say
I
that.
just fucking
This
like
is good
turn you
stuff.
into a fucking cube and throw you.
Oh, really?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Good times.
Well, did we resolve all of the important questions that we came here to debate?
Yeah, I think I won.
Nick's
very
ideas
easily.
are good, but he's a bitch. Right? I'm gonna kick you now.
Oh, come on.
Dude,
Why'd you do
did you
that?
really?
Oh, did you kick him? Oh.
Yes.
Look, I mean,
What are we gonna talk about now?
the guy's right about 30% of
bring him
things,
back.
but
Bring him
it's
back.
so nuts.
Way more fun with him in it. Don't kick him out, you bitch.
It's like the room's
his
over.
ideas are fine. I just don't like him. He's like
let Saurabh Sharma talk. I want to know what he thinks about all
Luca,
this.
you know what you have to do is when CPAC comes around, when he holds his half pack, you have to go to that.
Wait, is he gone now, or can we bring him back up?
Nah, fuck that guy.
Oh my god.
You want to bring Dave Riley up? He's asking to come up. If you want to bring, he was the one that.
Let's
Nick
bring
mentioned.
Kai Clips up. I like Kai.
No, Dave. Dave.
Damn, you really.
You know, my problem with Nick is like I've been one of the people that have said, "Don't cancel this guy." Like we disagree on certain things, but don't cancel him. But he's just like not a good person. Like he's just a piece of.
You're mad.
Hey, I was telling you.
Hold on. I will say to that point. Listen, there's like there's parts like performative aspects when he's in front of like a big crowd. But if you're like one-on-one, it's not going to be like that.
Come on, nuance, bro. The guy kind of is a dick.
I mean, yeah, I'm a dick. Whatever.
No, yeah, I think this is really funny.
Are any of the ladies in here bothered by this racist? If you are, DM me. I can help you. I can attend for you.
I think it's a little bit silly. 99% of the time when people talk about Nick, it's always this prefacing. It's like, well, he's a really mean guy. He's this, and that. And you guys yourselves, I mean, and this is the thing that I like, actually. I mean, Luca, you and others are at least willing to admit, like, Nick is right on, like, over 90% of the issues. And at least now we have people admitting that.
Nah.
But look, I'm not...
30% maybe.
Okay. Well, at least you're admitting that he's right on some of them, because before a lot of people weren't willing to do that.
It's 77%.
But it's always contextualized by this. Yeah, but I really don't like that he's mean, and I don't know. Like, did you just miss like 2016? Wasn't this like part of the allure? And now everybody's going to get worked up over the fact that this guy agitates. If this guy didn't agitate, he
doesn't want to build, dude. Every time. No, listen.
Luca, I just want to be clear. You're making the exact argument I was making like an hour ago. I just want.
Every time somebody tries to do something,
literally, like it takes an hour of like Nick like insulting like Luca for him to be like making the exact argument I was making like an hour before.
No, I think he's influential. I'm just
about
saying
how he's
that,
not like he's not good for the movement.
Nate, let me
politically he's bad.
I think he's influential. And I think a lot of what he says is good. But I also think that he's wrong on certain things, which I'm fine with. I'm not going to like tell people like I support him being able to say what he wants to say.
Do you still think
100%.
he's good for the movement?
But he's not a good person.
Do you still think he's good for the movement after he said that you had a feminine voice?
And I don't care for him, but that's fine. That's fine.
Do you still think he's good for the movement after he said you had a high-pitched feminine voice?
Yeah, I still think he's fine for the movement. I just don't like him. I don't want him on my Twitter.
He said you had a high-pitched feminine voice.
Yeah,
my voice sounds exactly like his.
But his personality, you can't disconnect it from his view. His view is we don't need to build bridges, we just need to burn them. And that's how he acts, and that's how he thinks. And the problem is you can't win anything political that way.
Well,
I think he's doing better than you.
I think this is a little bit unfair, and I think you're looking at it very mutually exclusively. You're saying, like, Nick is always really mean to people. I mean, this is obviously not the case. And just because Nick, and I'm not even disagreeing with this, Nick agitates. Nick is somebody who gets people mad. He does have, like if people are saying stuff about him, he'll punch back. But that's exactly what we need. And you have a lot of people out here making a bigger deal about the fact that he is rude than the fact that, he has really important ideas that because he's effective are spreading. And the effectiveness of Nick comes from his personality, which is consistent. If Nick came in with this suit and the tie and was, networking with all these guys and was trying to do this from within the mainstream, and if he wasn't mean, he would not be effective. So either
I'm sorry. No, you can do this thing. You can be really good like Nick is on the camera. You can even hold the dissident views Nick has on the camera. And I'm already like kind of on board with it. Like I don't want to cancel him. But the moment that you start like throwing people under the bus, trying to do substantive things in DC or in the media or whatever, because they don't like fit your bill, because you don't like how they talk, go fuck yourself. Like that's not good for the movement, and I don't respect you.
And just to add, Kai, just to address your point, Kai, don't you think that I guess the revealed preferences of many people in the conservative faction, namely the preference of them to associate with Nick, actually says more about his ability to build an effective coalition than his agitation, for example? I mean, the fact that people are alienating themselves from the conservative movement, it says a lot, right? Like the fact that most people don't want to associate with Nick, and they see him as like tarring their reputation. I mean, that's not viable. That's not sustainable if you want to actually build a mass mobilization of people, right?
If we're obsessed with the association games, I think a lot of people are turned off by Nick. I mean, I don't know if you guys caught the Elijah Schaffer interview. This is what they talked about at length because Sydney Watson, the woman on the panel, had a huge issue. She's like, well, your followers are so mean and this and that. And whether or not you like the Groypers, they are one of the most effective people out in politics. And you guys are all going to go, what the? Because the Groypers make everybody hate Nick and this and that. There are so many cases of Groypers bullying people into changing their behavior or changing the beliefs that they share publicly. And that's the reason agitation is important. I'm not
bullied
saying
into changing my address more like.
Wait.
Oh my God.
Hold on. Outside of Charlie Kirk, what's an example of that?
Right.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to go off and list every single like small.
No, just one.
Well, hold on.
Just one.
Name a couple.
Name like one.
Yeah, hold on. Let me go through it. So I know. Okay, I can't say these certain things because everybody's worried with playing the association game. So if I say, okay, I know these cases where Nick himself, seeing Nick's videos and the way that people have been treated by Nick and his audience, that has changed their minds. If I go out and say that, it's people like you who are going to say, well, I don't want to be associated with that. And that's when people are put into the position where they disavow.
But I don't really know.
I
don't really think you know who I am, but I'm just looking for one example of when it worked outside of Charlie Kirk.
And I'm asking you at least to understand that if I make the claim on a public panel like this that somebody had like passed Nick or caused something to happen, that can have very negative repercussions on the person who I mention. I'm like, it's okay. You literally.
All right, but Kai. I just spoke to Nick.
All right, so Hadar can talk.
Yeah, I just spoke to Nick for the first time in my life. I've heard of him tangentially. I listened to him talk a little bit. I kind of got a view for who he was. It wasn't to my liking. I ran into him. I started asking a few questions. And just like you should have seen the other day, me and Luca were at it. We were like shouting at each other. We disagree on some stuff, okay? And immediately, okay, my Twitter starts blowing up. These guys are attacking me, all right? I just don't see that as like a viable way of doing politics. Like anybody who asks some questions and doesn't agree with you and happens to be Jewish, okay, now we hate him and we're going to attack him. It's ridiculous. Like you don't make friends that way.
Well, I mean,
I don't even have a problem with that. No, listen, but my problem is more extensive than that. I don't give a shit if like someone DMs me or whatever. I have a problem with the fact that every single time somebody, whether it's Claremont Institute, whether it's American Compass, any of these people try to make substantive changes in Washington, he opposes it. And, you know, it's kind of interesting. Maybe he's a plant. Maybe there's something going on there. But I like people that get things done. I don't like people that shout from their rooms. And, you know, maybe he'll say something interesting from his room, but he's, you know, small potatoes.
Well, hold on. What would you take as an example? Because, I mean, that seems almost exactly the argument that I was hearing from a lot of people after the recent elections in New Jersey and whatnot, is because you have these people who say, well, we have politicians who are trying to get stuff done. And we've got people like Glenn Youngkin who are talking about CRT, and Nick and everybody else in our side of the aisle understand that, okay, it's good he's talking about CRT. But then you look at some of like the campaign promises and the posters this guy puts out, and it's awful. It's like everything that we've had for the last 20 years.
Nobody here supports Youngkin. Nobody here is like a big Youngkin.
Okay,
guy.
but
like,
no, hold on. The reason I bring up Youngkin is just because like I'll just cut to the chase. What's your example of what Nick is shutting down that's actually authentically right-wing, effective, and is going to push this movement further to the right?
Okay, J.D. Vance, Josh Hawley, like literally
wait. J.D. Vance and Josh Hawley, who are...
Absolutely.
Well, if we're going to talk about subversion, I think there's a bit of a subversion on this. Like, it's all about economics. It's not at all about race. I mean, this is the same...
No. Okay, Paul Gosar.
They don't. I don't think they do that. They recognize a lot of the anti-white stuff.
Even the people that Nick has like by hand selected as his representatives in Congress, Green, Gosar, all of these people do not agree with him. They don't agree with him on this idea that like the identity is solely based on race. They just don't agree. They actually agree. No, nuance. I mean, you can say that, but you can ask them. They'll say they don't. So they agree with me.
Ask them, sure. Yeah, they're not going to say it publicly
because everybody plays these dumb association games. But here's the other thing, though. I mean, half of the argument is Nick can't get along with anybody; he has no friends. And then you yourself just said, okay, well, this guy who started out doing a show at his school and has just been doing this internet.
It's not
thing,
about friends. It's not about friends.
Then what's it about? Because in one
he has the option. He has the option when he's doing his show to